Welcome to Healings and Meditations with Frank Jordan and the Earth Mind Think Tank Group. We welcome all listeners and chatters. Any questions can be called in to 1-775-657-5973. 1-775-657-5973. If you're in the chat room on Wolf Spirit Radio, which is wolfspiritradio.com/wolf chat, please post questions in uppercase letters, in capital letters. Thank you. Now on with the show. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio. So you are. Welcome. This is Healings and Meditations on Wolf Spirit Radio, everbeyondradio.com, nobordersradio.co.uk, and simulcast all over your mind. Welcome. It's the 27th of April, and here is the Earth Mind Think Tank Group featuring Frank Jordan on lead.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome one more time to the Think Tank Group, and realizing that the focus of our concentration is on the evolution of consciousness primarily, and there's many aspects of that. The primary one being each of us individually, of course, and what we can do to learn and grow and expand our own personal consciousness. And through that, we expand the awareness of the group mind consciousness of everyone we interact with. And beyond that, the consciousness of Earth itself and the various grids and fields of consciousness within Earth. We've been able to identify many of these and participate in them. And as we grow in power and our unification of our communication, we grow stronger. And it's been interesting because there's been some challenges coming up for individuals during the last period. And the recognition comes that challenges are, without a doubt, just exactly that. To focus, to make us focus, to give us the opportunity to look beyond ourselves, our personal interests, look outside of ourselves, what we can do to grow and evolve and become greater beings. And that's the whole growth of consciousness concept of clearing ourselves of our blocks, our fears, our forms, our limitations, and looking beyond ourselves to what we can be and what we truly are. My personal observation has been in working with people for something like 33 years now, working directly in people's consciousness, being able to access the inner consciousness of people, initially for healing, and then for clearing the psycho-mental causes of illnesses, and then beyond that, the emotional experiences people pattern into themselves or are subjected to that create their reality. And one observation is that our low self, our subconscious mind, tends to recycle information, patterns, and forms. And it will do it again and again and again until we get the lesson, until we grow beyond the need to be recycled through the same pattern of difficulty, emotional trauma, or relationships that seem to keep us locked into a wheel of repetitious cycling. And ultimately, it's all about gaining our personal power. And personal power is simply learning self-identity, self-worth, getting an awareness of who you really are or what you can be without the negative patterns and forms that limit our reality. And so that's been the focus with the clearing the way to higher consciousness techniques that we developed. The recognition that every physical aspect of a person that can go wrong usually has a mental, emotional cause, a shock, a trauma, something that is interfering with the natural cycle, the natural functionality of the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And so once we learned that and learned that we could access inner consciousness and deprogram the living human body, just as you would drag trash on a computer screen and drag unused information or wanting to clear a concept. So you clear the unnecessary things that might be blocking the clarity of a higher concept. If you clear that, drag it to trash, get it out of the system, everything works better. I know there's a thing they call defragging computers, where they just get so overloaded with trash and that the hard disk can't gather all the information it needs from all the different places it has information stored to function properly. Well, the same thing happens in humans. We are living consciousnesses. We are living computers. The silicon dioxide in our cell wall stores everything that ever happens to us in direct resonance with Earth mind, and the surface of Earth being 63% silicon dioxide, absolutely stores every energetic experience that happens not only for humans, but everything that has DNA on Earth. And that is the consciousness of the instinctive consciousness of animals. And we are primarily animals. We have relied on this low self animal consciousness so long that we become automatic responders to negativity that's programmed into us or in our family flows or the community consciousness, or we just accept. We don't look and identify what is causing the negativity and causing the cycle to reoccur again and again and again. But when you gain self-awareness and look within and go back in time and learn that you can clear the standing waves of time of anything that was ever created back there in your awareness, you can clear it and deprogram it out of your system. These are not difficult things to do. It's all just learning how things work. And that's been my function for the last 30 years, is to understand how things work, how to gain the inner consciousness so we have awareness of outer consciousness. And since I pretty much mastered the inner consciousness now, how the subconscious mind works and what drives us, how we become our own creators of our realities, and what we can do to master that reality rather than being subjective to it. That focus, that force of consciousness, that self-awareness that puts you in power of your reality is the most important thing I can think of in anyone's life. Everything you do out there, every experience, every platform, every stage you walk upon is just a teaching field of experience, and it teaches you. And so if you internalize the lessons and then release them, and pass the lessons on to others so others can benefit from it, that results in growth. That growth is a higher resonance of consciousness, rising above the frequency ranges of the low self and of the domination forces that would hold us and limit us in lower consciousness. I know myself, as I rise up through clarity and understanding how things work and deprogramming, more and more and more, I'm not besieged by negativity. And in working with other people, helping them to clear and understand it, I still can find things in myself that use some clearing with. And we were having a discussion last week, some of my clients and some of the think tank members, about how negativity seems to be, we're attracting it or it's attacking us, the opposition force is attacking us. Well, I'm here to tell you that it can't attack you if you are in charge of your personal power. If you're in the state of consciousness where you keep your awareness up in your higher frequency ranges, up in your brain area rather than in your low self area, things cannot attack you. It's when you get pulled down in frequency vibration that you're subjective and susceptible to limitation forces and opposition forces and things of that nature. And that opposition force is very real. Its job, its function, is to limit you, to cause you to make yourself grow and evolve into higher states and levels of being. And so I'd like to talk with the group about that tonight. Because we have a wonderful group of people here in the Earth Mind Think Tank group. which began as simply a meditation group to try to help us to grow and evolve. But we've attracted some very wise people into this group now, good thinkers, experiential people who have been there and done that and are rising up to the levels where now you can freely give advice, having experienced that of which you speak. And that experience is the primary teacher, the main teacher, the one that really is meaningful and makes a living impact in you. So I'd like to invite the group now to step forward and share your experiences with us and what you feel the opposition force is, what can we do as individuals or as a group to counter opposition forces, and what can we do to help each other? That's what we're here for, is everyone to empower everyone else and thus be empowered ourselves. So would anyone like to roll it out?
Yeah, Frank, David here. As you know, you and I have been doing some work from time to time, and last week when we were doing some work in Earth Mind, working with opposition force energy that I could discern was, moving to me, constantly bothering me, I've come to understand fully how that opposition force can work and how the clearing aspects can actually help us be more discernible about what's actually happening. As I've become more and more clear, I've been able to really bring it down to the core elements that I'm actually feeling this from and knowing that they're coming from the low self. And by consistently, as you've said many times, moving up and rising in consciousness, most of it is falling away. And if I don't hold that and fall back into that low self, then I instantly can recognize now that opposition force is sitting there kind of waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And it has no problem coming.
What do you recognize as being some of the traps or the triggers that pulls you back down, David?
Well, you can thought. I've discovered that thought can have such a powerful thing, and I've read many writers over the years who've said, we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, but we keep having the same thoughts over and over and over again to make that 60,000. So it's really kind of moving yourself out of those mechanisms of, and I'll even take it to the base part of lust, the things that compromise you in the root chakra, the sex chakra, the lower self, which kind of open up, and you're still kind of working from those old patterns and forms that you're used to, so you seem to kind of slide back easily into them. But the clearer you get, the more quickly you can discern it, and the more quickly they fall away as you're recognizing what's happening, and you get to retrain your process and reorient your thinking and your thought process. So it's kind of all happening at the same time. But when you reach a point where you've gotten really good clarity for a while, you begin to recognize how powerful that clarity is, and what you, as you just said, you are doing nothing but giving away your power. We're amazing beings who just keep walking around with this loser's limp. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and you're right on. Jane and I had a joke when we were going through this period, something like 15, maybe 18, 20 years ago, where we were learning to keep our point of awareness up.
Yes.
And our joke was to walk around with holding our eyebrows up to remind us to keep our point of attention up there in the forehead, instead of letting it slide back down where the low self could grab it and take it down below the navel and throw a fantasy up instead.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And I've also been playing this week, and I use the word playing loosely, but working with the energies and trying to discern if I'm getting attacked by an opposition energy, what is the polarity of that energy? And what I discovered this week, for myself at least, is that it is a positive polarity, positive male polarity. And I've been trying to say, okay, well, how about I balance that? What if I just go into the Earth Mother, and bring up Earth energy and ask that energy to simply dissolve it, balance it, and bring me back into complete polarity as I should be. And I've watched that disappear. So those energies I would be feeling coming into my subtle body simply would get balanced and fall away. And I thought that would really be worth sharing tonight.
David, you hit the point exactly. No thought rises spontaneously if it is in balance. It rises because of an imbalance in polarity between what the low self, the subconscious mind, is concerned or thinking about, or what it's trying to promote you to do or prompt you to do, and the high self, which is coming from the opposite polarity, the oversoul realm, which is trying to prompt you to think positively every moment you possibly can, to move you forward and upward in the vibrational frequency ranges. So every moment of every day is a moment of choice. That being, do you respond to the low self promptings, or do you respond to the high self promptings? Do you move up or do you move down? And ultimately, when you've cleared the prompters, those patterns and old habits and things out of the low self that draw you down in there, and not all in the low self, the emotional things in the heart center too and above can be a great detractor if you have negative self-perception pattern there and negative thought forms or fears and anxieties and stresses of the high self, which are there too. Because one thing you have to recognize, it isn't all pro and con, it isn't all high and low. The low self has positive aspects of consciousness as well as negative aspects of consciousness, but it's an animal. So what it really is focused on primarily is survival. Yeah. Survival of the species being number one. That's what prompts the sexual thoughts. And the question I finally realized, after much study and self-realization, is that it prompts that low self. It prompts through the low self to have sex and for reproduction, so that it will assure a genetic body further down the line, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, somewhere down the line, so that it will have a body to reincarnate in as it goes through the death experience.
Yeah. Well, I brought these principles to a couple of new people this week in conversation, introducing them to the low self, the high self, and actually taking ownership and being what they really were meant to be, and to exercise that power. And I can tell you that instantly it resonated with them so powerfully, they have just energized. And one of them is a woman who hasn't been out of her house pretty much for a year. Got out this week after our conversation and mowed her lawn, because she figured out, I'm not going to sit here and just die. I'm going to open up. I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be. I'm going to clear this stuff away, and I'm going to take my life back. Mm-hmm. That's profound.
Absolutely. That's what life's all about, is taking charge. Yes. That's the teacher. That's the lesson. That's the learning. But it's amazing how once you begin to recognize whether the thoughts are rising from low self or high self, it's so much easier to hold yourself in that high self realm and be creative, co-creative, to reach out laterally and stay in contact with others of a high consciousness. Because as soon as you encounter one of a low consciousness, it'll suck you down. And like I started to say, there are negative and positive in the high self as well as the low self. So the low self isn't all bad. It has our survival consciousness. It takes care of the body. We have to respond to it, nurture the body, and take care of it. And it'll prompt you to do positive things in that nature. And the high self can have negative thoughts and things too. That's what's patterned in there, like fears and anxieties, high self-stresses, worry about abundance and things of that nature. That's a low self too, but the high self has to feed it. And so if you've got a lot of worries about abundance and income, nurturing, that's the low self prompting you to get out and make more money. Only it doesn't think money, it just thinks survival. It thinks food and production. But the high self, if you have concerns in the high self, about such things, it triggers the low self to throw up those fear of abundance problems and become an interfering thing. When we're focused on negativity, that's what we attract.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental law of consciousness right there.
Yeah.
We want to control our minds, or we want to liberate our minds? That's the big question.
You control your thoughts. You don't control your mind.
You want to control your thoughts. Your mind consists of these 80 billion thoughts every day, or 80,000.
Correct. And so it's up to you. It's up to you.
Are you the mind? Are you the mind?
It's up to you.
Are these thoughts your thoughts? Are these thoughts the thoughts of the consciousness that's around you since you've been around this world?
That's your discernment.
Well, if you want to liberate your mind. You want to separate yourself from your mind and get it away from yourself, separate from yourself, in a different position geographically. And it's more like a garbage can that you need it, but you keep it with a lid on it and you keep it away from yourself. And all these, don't bother trying to control it. Let it go and do what it's going to do. All the dirty filth in the universe is in your mind. There's no use trying to stop it. Why not just let it be free? It's doing what it does. That's its function. It's to think of. You got all these chakras. Your mind travels constantly between all these chakras, thinking about what's going on in different levels. 1 minute you're in your sex chakra, next minute you're in your oversoul or whatever.
That's the subconscious mind operating. However, when you meditate, what's the purpose of meditating? It's not to be in your low self daydreaming about sex. It's to be up having high fruitful thoughts and exploring doing things that are beneficial to your reality and not detrimental to it. So this is where the control of the thought process comes in. Not just letting it run free or you're just an animal out there. The low self will win every time.
Maybe it's stepping back and being a witness to what the voices are saying and not participating.
Getting attached to it. Don't get attached to any of these thoughts. They're just, don't let it fool you. You know, it's a bunch of bullshit. That's what's going around in the brain, thoughts.
I see them equivalent to television commercials. I never pay attention to those. Why should I pay attention to this other stuff?
Exactly.
That's a great way to look at it.
And if you separate, if it's like you live it, you're in a garbage can when you stay there all the time. You're living in your garbage can that's full of all the garbage in the world. But you don't need to
listening to a commercial. It's being broadcast for a beautiful, sexy girl.
Over and over, every 5 minutes on TV. The same thing.
I don't know. I don't think a thing about it.
What? What'd you say, Joan?
I don't think much about it at all. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, women are different than men.
Well, women process thought energy 5 times faster than men, so I have to take my hat off to women.
That's why they're always there.
I've got a little deeper observance on that, Joan. You say you don't think about it, and yet women, when they see a beautiful, sexy woman, they are comparing themselves to that woman. And are they competitive? Are they attractive enough to survive out there? And that's low self stuff doing that. That's not high self.
Totally. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what happens. Although that thought starts changing, I say after 60, but that thought form does start changing, and you start admiring but not being threatened by at all. And that's a very freeing, good feeling.
Admiring beauty for beauty's sake.
Yes, and not being in the danger zone. No competition. It's glorious.
Become it. Be it.
Yes.
You don't have to be separate from anything.
That's one of the programs for females to clear out of their energy system, that from the earliest age, their minds are bombarded by magazines, commercials, you name it, as to what is the female culture, what it takes to be beautiful, what does it take to... So from the crib, you're being trained to compete with other females.
It's also in our DNA. We want the stronger male to give us their strong DNA. It is, in a way, competition from the beginning. But after a certain age, after that's no longer important, you're free.
Okay, stop right there. Explanation point here. I learned very early on, when I learned I could go in and read people and read their frequency levels. I could go to a piano and hit a note on the piano, and that note was exactly in the frequency range of where that person's center of consciousness was. And the surprising thing is a lot of people who thought they were spiritual that did not necessarily have a higher note on that frequency range in the octaves than what some of the just nice, good, benign people out here, generalized people. And so that too would tell me where these supposedly very spiritual people were deluding themselves. They were thinking, they were expressing, they were... their facade was of being this beautiful, perfect, high self-being, but in reality, they hadn't cleared their low selves to where they could stay in that high self. This brings us back to the point excellently. As you clear down, you are allowed to rise up in the frequency ranges. And that is the only thing I learned from one of the major gurus that I studied, was that concept right there. You have to clear down in order to rise up.
Right. Kundalini starts at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And as you clear, your subtle fields become more sensitive, and you become more aware, and you become more capable of managing that process.
You know, that brings me to something I was wondering about this afternoon. We have some very well-studied people here. They've studied a lot of teachers and gurus, and some of you have gone to India and done all sorts of spiritual practices. Tell me what practices you've experienced have actually, honestly helped you or are helping you now.
I can share that. I did a process with Janvala Melchizedek, and it was the Sacred Heart meditation. And when I did that, there's something called the unity breath as well. When I touched that space within me, I have not been the same. It is just profoundly sacred, holy space. And that's when my tone started and I touched that higher part of myself. And it's the Sacred Heart within.
Well, is that what, in my work, what we call unifying the heart chakra with the soul and oversoul?
And the 0 point that you speak of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm trying to learn here. I want to learn from you guys. Now, what have you done with other teachers that really worked?
I'll chime in. Oh, Teresa will chime in.
I was just going to say that in my particular case, years ago I studied that practice called Kriya Yoga that's taught by Paramahamsa Yogananda. And it's very similar in many ways to Frank's clearing process, because the first thing that they teach you about Kriya Yoga is that when you practice, you're supposed to do 28 Kriyas per day, 14 in the morning and then 14 when you meditate at night. And one single Kriya, properly practiced, correctly practiced, is equivalent to 1 year of chronological life. Yes. So the purpose of the Kriya is actually to do that, to accelerate your evolution while you're still in the body. And it's very similar to Frank's clearing of the way in many senses, because you are taking, you have to breathe in and out, but you have to move your throat muscles in a specific way. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, the incoming breath and the outgoing breath make a specific sound when you make those muscular adjustments. And as you breathe in, you're bringing up the energy from the Kundalini up into the third eye. And as you breathe out, you're taking that energy from the third eye down into the Kundalini. And you do that 14 times in one sitting. And the important element is not so much the mental element of all this motion, but that you should be focused in love all the time as you're doing this. So, and I think after my first month of practice, there were consciousness realizations of things that I had never seen before or had never noticed before. So that was my experience with that practice. Take it up, Teresa.
Okay, that's excellent. However, when you got with me, you immediately understood better what you were doing when you're clearing patterns and forms. And would you not say that through understanding of the principles of how it really works, rather than just doing a practice, that it accelerated your practice?
Correct. Because that's one of the things is that I totally get, I don't fault the teacher, because I totally get when Paramahansa Yogananda was here in the U.S., one has to realize he came in 1920. So right then and there's an entire culture, an entire cultural, historical context that he has to work out of. The first time somebody from India comes to the U.S., so he was a stranger in a strange land. Mm-hmm. So everything he said on how he wrote his lessons, on how he wrote his books, was to try to access the mind and the culture of that time. Mm-hmm. So those people that just fault him, oh, he should have said this, or he should have explained this. Yes, but understand, what was the level of consciousness in 1930? Would you say is the same as today? Absolutely not. People today, out in the supermarket line, I'm being surprised every day that I can actually, if somebody starts a conversation, I can actually say something of a metaphysical nature, and they get it. 10 years ago, they would have laughed in my face. So yes, collective consciousness is changing.
Absolutely. Teresa, you had a comment. No follow-up?
Teresa, still there?
Hi there. Yep. I was changing over to a headset. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
Over the years, I've been studying with dowsing primarily. And as I would read things, it felt like I was just picking up puzzle pieces along the way. And everybody has gone off to the YouTube and listened to a variety of people along the way. But every time you learn something new, it's a new puzzle piece. But I have to admit that the opportunity to work with Frank and guide us, it's so much more of a roadmap for me, and I was able to and continue to put those pieces of the puzzle together. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of the group so that we can actually exercise our experiences and see if we've really made headway or compare what we've learned. And I'm also extremely fortunate to have good friends that are quite intuitive, and I am constantly sharing with them what I'm learning here, and I get feedback from them. And so it's like living it and trying it and experimenting with it and being very mindful about what I've learned. And I feel in this past year that I've been with the group, I've accelerated enormously in comparison to where I began. My intuition is improved tremendously. I can see things, hear things that I never saw before intuitively, and I'm finding it difficult to stumble through with words because I'm starting to lose the ability to communicate even more and more. But my ability to tune into things telepathically is increasing. And so perhaps I need to take some courses in speech and talking, because I am having trouble communicating it.
You sound like you're doing just great.
Well, bottom line is that in listening to the other perspectives, it triggers your own inner knowing. And so with that inner knowing, you don't need so much outer stimulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do try sharing it with people, and I'm getting, as you do, Walt, better responses with people, and, you know, I think we're tuning into them, and they say, I can't remember who said this once, but they said that the heart gets information 6 seconds before the brain does. So we, you know, when we're in that lineup at the, you know, whatever outlet, we can tune in.
Did you know that about one of the mechanics of telepathy? Whereas your brain center is the transmitting station, the heart is the receiving station. You knew that, right?
Well, that's why we say that the entire chakra system, the viroports, are the receptors of all the information out there, and it feeds into the subconscious mind to the 0 point and then up into your brain. So that's exactly right on.
The brain's the last thing to find out.
The last one to listen.
Well, that's not the brain in the cranium is not the body brain anyway. So the body brain is in the solar plexus area. So the body has two brains.
That's right.
Makes things easier, right?
There's another brain in your third chakra, isn't there? The place where you get all nervous and
that solar plexus area.
Yeah, that's the third chakra, right?
Yeah.
They say there's a brain there too, a big one. Do you agree with that, Frank?
Well, yeah, that's the autonomic nervous system. So that's one that isn't controlled other than by the needs of the body's responses and what it listens out there to what's going on and responds directly to it, but it doesn't go through the brain to do it. It's like an unconscious instinctive brain.
It reacts to what's going on in the brain. I found that out.
Sure.
You know, like indigestion, that people get indigestion, heartburn all the time. I've had it for years, and I learned what was causing it. And it's actually a thought in your brain that occurs that activates your gallbladder to secrete all the too much, the secretions. Mm-hmm. And it's a nervous. Your thought is something you're freaking out about, something that's going to happen in the future, or something that's coming up.
Well, that thought is a secondary response because the first response came out of your low self that was monitoring and going to interfere and throwing that fear up into
right. Well, let's use the example of stage.
Cycle.
You're gonna go on stage and perform in front of 1,000 people. You've never done it before. You're really worried. The nervousness gets you right in your guts. And what are you nervous about? What are you upset about? Because something's going to happen in the future that you're really scared of.
Fear of failure.
Right. And I used to get heartburn. You know, I do fix cars. So you're always messing around with cars that are screwed up. And you get anxiety over dealing with this unknown thing that in the future, with like whether you're going to be able to fix this thing or not. You know, that kind of stress and things like that. And it's like but anyways, when I eventually got rid of the heartburn, just by now I'm more will catch it at 1 split second before it activates the gallbladder, something like that.
JP, what are your teachings in all this?
Well, they talk about these three things, and they all begin with "in." Is instinct, which is what you're talking about, the solar plexus, the your gut feeling about something, the sense of your hackles rising, all of that lower body. That's the skin suit's consciousness. And then you have intelligence, which is like your adult brain, your ability to process and cognitize and all that, which is what they call the lower mind. And then they have the higher mind, which is the intuition. And so we have instinct, intelligence, and intuition, or intellect and intuition.
Very good.
I had this one guru who said that there's more intelligence in the air around you than there is in your brain.
Well, now you're getting into expanded consciousness working out through the psychic center. And that's a pretty good statement right there, because we are so overwhelmed with information that's resonating into our systems all the time that we're not aware of, that our brain is just constantly having to sort out thousands of thought impulses to come up with one clear, pure thought that can be responsive or that you can use to manage your reality.
Right. And you're being filled up with this stuff on a daily basis from the outside into your brain. It has to try to figure it all out.
Well, the scientists, psychologists say that just like a group right here now, this think tank group that's talking, our shared morphogenic field is actually doing about 85% of the communicating now, rather than what our verbal communication is. That verbal communication is just kind of a expressed thought form vocalization that imprints exactly on what a subject matter is. But surrounding that, every one of you are picking up thoughts and impulses and ideas and relating to that basic flow of information.
Right.
So that's why when somebody's lying to your face, you can tell a mile away?
Yeah.
Because they're lying and you're picking up what the true energy of that is behind that is.
And sometimes you got to get a mile away later to look at it and see whether it was a lie or not.
If you're programmed to believe what you're told, and then he can be right in your face, and you still don't get the message.
Frank, I've been discussing this very subject the last couple of days. And my erstwhile guest, Shari Edwards, has come up with an actual frequency, how can I say, detection of whether somebody's telling the truth or not. And she's saying that when you're speaking the truth, you express B flat and E. And these notes, if you actually were to play them together, they sound discordant. They're like the beginning of Purple Haze. But those notes, those frequencies together are the indicator that you're talking from your heart and your head. So that there's cognitive resonance and not cognitive dissonance.
Well, and now that's a wonderful expression. The trouble is, most of us don't have the cognitive resources to understand that, or how to judge what the resonances are. And with my level of intelligence on music, I wonder why we have to be flat on our back in order to understand something.
Ha ha.
Well, sorry about that.
See, what I got from that whole thing was, you said it was a B flat and an E, so I got B, being, B. So when you be, you are in your heart and you know the truth.
So what are the notes when someone's lying?
Well, it'll be, they'll have maybe an E, but they won't have the B flat. Or it'll be a different note, because it'll be, as they say, don't be flat, don't be sharp, just be natural. Little musical joke there, I think I got away with it. But
that was over my head.
Give us a B flat.
Hang on.
Is that 5 notes apart from each other?
No, there's 6 notes. It's called a tritone. Hang on, let me give you an example. Here's the E. Here's the E. Hang on, all right. This is the E. Okay, and this is the B flat. Now,
Sounds flat.
this is a B. That's a B and an E, and this is a B flat and an E, and you'll hear it's dissonant.
Yeah.
But aren't they in harmony
like
to each other, though?
No, they're dissonant.
Ah.
You know that? That's the beginning of Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. Anyway, but it's got this. But, however, if you're speaking and your voice contains these two frequencies, your heart and your head recognize it. You sense dissonance when, I don't know, it's that kind of, when somebody's laying it out flat, I say it, laying out flat, there's a flatness to somebody when they're speaking the absolute truth. They're not embellishing it. They're not trying to sing you a different song. They're just telling it like it is. And there is the plus and the minus polarity, and I think that's what it is. Because they correspond, if you're looking at astrology, they would correspond to, I think it's the quincunx. It's like 6.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Have you listened to Obama lately?
Well, you'll hear him sing a different song, yeah.
Well, I think the great orators can lie right to your face and use those notes that you're talking about with greatest sincerity, and they can transmit lies as truth.
Well, that's the thing. That several years ago, some CIA people went to one of Shari's courses, and they learned this, and it was during the Clinton days, and they said that he had no D in his voice. She said this in this course, and these guys were listening. And so whenever they broadcast his voice, they would emphasize, they would use the graphic equalizer to emphasize the D frequency that he didn't actually have. So you'll hear...
who was that?
Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Clinton, yeah.
If you listen to him when you're in his interview, and when you listen to him like if interviewed by a journalist on the street, his voice is completely different and much less convincing because it didn't have that note that they synthesized in.
That's like putting a sock in your pants.
or a potato, but it depends which one. No.
But so JP, what happens if, let's say, you unequivocally, wholeheartedly believe in something that's completely untrue and false, but to you it's the absolute truth? If you're sharing this with someone, you're going to have those two frequencies because to you it's the truth. You're not aware that it's not true, correct?
But you believe it. It's a belief in the knowing.
See, that's what allows confidence men to be so powerful.
Yep.
They believe what they're saying, even though they know they're lying.
Well, there's another way around this, guys. If over time you're able to discern or define your discernment, you actually can hear someone say something and determine whether it feels light or heavy. If it's light, it's true, and if it's heavy, it's untrue.
Correct. You feel it in your energy system.
Exactly. So it just takes a little bit of time to work that in to have that be automatic, but it is possible to start hearing things coming from people's mouths and go, nah, not true.
I firmly believe everything I say, and I don't care what anybody else says, and I'm going to maintain that I'm right, and to hell with all of you. Now, what do you think of that?
A lot of B flats and E's in that one.
Okay. Well, sorry about that.
Don't confuse Frank with the facts. His mind's made up.
But anyway, but back to the point is that although we hear it as a dissonance to our ears, harmonically, musically, it's a dissonance, but cognitively, it's a resonance when it's those two notes there, and when there isn't it, that's when we feel the cognitive dissonance, because we're hearing it with our heart, and we're hearing it with our mind, and we're feeling it with our heart, and when they're both matching, or when they're both it's a complementation. It's essentially it's like the complementary color. If you're looking at the color wheel,
you're listening with your psychic mind instead of your mind.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. As well as.
You got to take it right in with your whole body so you feel the energy that's emanating from this whoever's talking.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The other thing.
To see the totality of what's coming at you. You know, the words and the sound is just the kind of the entryway to the doorway to the what's behind those words and what's behind that sound, and what's behind that face.
That's the psychic mind, the resonance. That's exactly right.
So we want to, use that. Well, that's a good tool to have handy when you're listening to people talk.
See, there's another truth here that's very real that I found, is that the subconscious mind is incredibly literal. It will believe everything that it hears or internalizes or that someone expresses. The conscious mind is the one that has to interpret and feed into the subconscious mind whether to believe it or not. So that frontal lobe, upfront conscious awareness mind, frontal lobes of the brain, is the one that has to process speech, thinking, flows of consciousness, interactive communication. And then it sends it back to the subconscious mind for internalization to believe it or not. And when it drops in the subconscious mind, if that frontal lobe brain has already accepted it and acknowledged it as being the truth, then it just takes it. The subconscious says, yes, that's true. I believe that. That's the way it is.
But there's no hurry to come to a judgment in most cases. There's time. There's always time. You don't have to believe it or disbelieve it. Just take it all in into your subtle, the whatever this is behind everything. And then later on when you're meditating, you might look at it again and see then at that point whether it's true or not. Get into the things you missed when you were there the first time.
Yeah, that's suspended judgment. And this is what I talk about when I'm talking about internalization. When you're learning information, any source of information is coming in the frontal lobes holds it and makes A plus B equals C. But when you drop it back into the subconscious mind, down into the chakra system, it goes down in there as A, B, C, just as knowledge, and just as information. Then when it comes back up into the conscious mind, where we extrapolate it and express it again, then it's knowledge expressing. Information is just downloading everything, and that's what the subconscious does. The frontal lobes is what rationally figures A plus B equals C.
Well, your frontal lobes are thinking some other thought while you're listening to what the guy's saying. Aren't they? Aren't you guys thinking other thoughts right now when I'm talking? Or are you just blank? Come on.
Well, I was wondering if you had any other color of shirts or just that red one.
No, when I'm listening on open scan, and then it kind of comes together, and when I drop it down into the subconscious, then it's there as part of my operating system.
So I've taught myself how to listen. And so when you are speaking, I am hearing everything you're saying. Now, subconsciously, I might be picking up different energies by the fluctuation of your tone of voice and so forth, but I am listening to what you're saying because I am not allowing myself to formulate an answer. So I listen.
Right. There's no question. There's no question, so you don't have to mess around trying to get an answer if there's no question. At that point, when you're listening, the thing with listening is most men have a trouble listening because it requires female energy to be a good listener. It's like taking energy in. Female is used to taking energy in. That's her natural thing. But a man, he wants to push out and push away, and so it's harder for his male ego or male mentality to surrender, actually, because surrender is involved. You got to surrender to open up. It feels like surrendering, opening up. So listening, it requires this female energy, this receiving kind of energy. And
okay, you just made an excellent point there between listening with the left side of your body or the right side of your body. Your left side female, if you're listening out of your left ear, you're listening with feeling. If you're listening out of your right ear, your rational male mind is forming a response while it's listening. So it's not really listening. It's internalizing so it can report. Where females, when they lift that left side, they are reporting. They're downloading that as direct energy into their system that they can use. Practice shifting back and forth, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
And people do that with all the senses, because I presented this argument before to people, and they said, how many times do you allow yourself to experience things just as they are? Because, for example, let's say we're sitting in a room and there's a table there. Well, when you look at the table, most people are not even seeing the table. They're seeing the color. Oh, this color reminds me of this other thing, or this table reminds me of that other table. So they're not even seeing the table. They're seeing the impressions that the table is giving them.
Most people they see their own past. Everything they're looking at now or perceiving now is always initiating memories.
It's a past impression.
That they focus on these memories.
They don't give themselves the chance to have a fresh
past. They never really get out of their own past.
Yeah.
Those people are boring people.
It's interesting, Frank. As I was listening, and after you talked about what side you're listening through, your left or your right, I find myself that I lean to my left a lot. And then every once in a while, I'll lean over to the right side, and that usually occurs before I give my 2 bits about something.
Well, that's, again, I teach this as one of my general practices, of understanding how to operate this mental emotional computer you are, is that when you want to express as female, you listen out of your left ear and then express through that left side. If you want to express as male with more power and conviction and competitively, you listen out of your right ear and shift to that side. And everybody does it. You do it unconsciously, but if you're aware of what you're doing, you can better manage your how you express to the world and how you're received out there. Because many times, a guy that's learned how to shift into his female just literally disarms another male, because a male cannot fight a female. He can only fight another male. Try it sometime, right in the middle of an argument. Shift into the left side and let your left side female express, and you just break them right down.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that's where that saying that Jesus or whoever said, turn the other cheek? I wonder if that had to do with listening.
The cheek on your butt.
I think you're right on.
Yeah, Catherine, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who was saying, they have a hard time expressing themselves. For the longest time, I wasn't until we've been talking, I'm going, I would always ask, and I guess it was my higher self going, okay, because I would say, Spirit, help me find the words that I need to say, and I would give myself up to that and allow whatever it is I needed to say for someone else to hear. Let me find the correct words, the correct phrases, the right intonations to have them hear what they need to hear, and I can give them what I want to impart to them. And I'm not sure, right now which side I was actually using, but I was just letting whichever side it was supposed to be coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it until now. what I was actually doing.
This is giving you greater awareness of how to operate your mechanism. JP, can we take a break and then come back?
He may be already breaking.
Sorry, I was just in the kitchen trying to fit.
Jumped the gun on us.
I was trying to fit a log that didn't fit into the stove. So I thought I'd better give that up and come back to the studio. Let's put on a tune then. Ping.
Was that a euphemism for some naughty activity?
We're taking a break now.
No naughty activities going on here.
There we go.
Sport.
There you go, back with, that was Massive Attack and Blue Lines. And welcome back to Healings and Meditations with Frank Jordan.
Yes, I'd like to wrap up our last discussion before we go into our healing work. Just to make a very clear point that there's a tremendous difference between the way females communicate and the way males communicate. Females rapport. Males report. And by that, I mean when men talk to each other, it's always one bit of one-upmanship. I know something you don't. Here's my bit of information. What do you know so I can up it one bit? And so it's a competitive thing. Always looking for the advantage, the control, the domination. Females, when they actually and honestly come from their female side, and a lot of females come from their male side when they communicate too. Females rapport. That means that they are coming from their heart, not from their brain, from their heart. They're honestly interested in the other person, in giving to the other person something that other female can use when they're rapporting. Because the way female communication works is they have to share information to make the life of the family work. They have to constantly communicate and support each other to make it work. Where men are out there on the opposite side constantly competing to control the reality that surrounds the female. And so whether we're coming from our left side or our right side has an incredible effect on our communication skills. And I teach this quite often to people, particularly females, when I recognize that they're primarily in their right side male. They've been programmed to be there because of having to be competitive out in the male world, or to be in a defensive posture where they had to be in their male side to avoid abuse or control abuse and things of that nature. To teach them how to be female and shift into that left side female rapporting and let their gentler side open up is really an incredible experience for them. And I'd like to demonstrate with each one of you now, since we have some new people here, and remind you old ones that have heard this before. Mm-hmm. This is how you determine whether you're primarily operating from your male side or your female side. Close your eyes. Take your point of awareness up into your forehead and step right straight back. Now, just listen out of your left side ear. Just shift into your left side, listen out your left ear, and feel your body. Just get an idea of the energy level there. Now come back to center and shift to the right. Listen out of your right ear and feel your body. Now come back to center. Now if you were heavier, more thick, more full in your right side, that means you're primarily operating as a male. If you were balanced, that's the beautiful state you should be in. And fortunately, I feel like I'm balanced unless something triggers me to be in my male side. So I'm pretty reasonable, I think, when I communicate with people. I listen to them. I can share opinions and ideas without trying to dominate them. And I've had to work to learn that because I was primarily male dominant oriented. So this is just a trick you can learn and a skill you can develop in your communication. It will help right within your own families and your own relationships incredibly well. Now, I'm being a little adamant about this right now. I'm really punching my points because it's so damned important in learning how to communicate with primarily your mates. And, well, enough said on that. Any responses?
That's why you got so adamant you stalled the call out there.
Okay.
Right? I will be a spokesperson for this. As Glenn, we always communicated very well on one level, but on another level, we had difficulty. And when you said the reporting with the male and the report with the female, the light bulb went off.
Yep.
It was called, yes. You know, we'd have several lifetimes together. You know, we were, you know, so in so many ways two halves of a whole yin and yang, but we always had problems communicating on a certain level. And this is one of the reasons one of the things he had to learn this time. And so, yes, very much so. I really agree with what you said. You have to balance it out. And when you were saying, you know, when you had us do that, and with the tilting, a lot of times I tilt my head likes to go to the left. But most of the time when my head is going to the left, I am thinking more from the left. I think.
Stop and think about that.
You know, because when we were doing that exercise, I'm like, you know, I guess I must be balanced because it seemed to me like it was the same.
Well, I have
and
a bumper sticker
very
on.
easily. It was just like, oh, you know, it's almost instantaneously switching.
Well, I have a bumper sticker on the back of my pickup that sums it all up. It says, if a man speaks in the forest and a woman isn't there to hear him, is he still wrong?
Well, we will comment.
Okay, I know the answer to that.
And I just love it because I drive down Pete Ulani Highway and I look at all these tourists, their husbands and wives, and they're behind me. And it takes about 30 seconds for the man to read it, and he kind of nods his head, and his wife looks over and goes, duh.
Joan?
Joan's an exception, you know. She's highly evolved, I can see. So she's an exception.
No, wait a minute here.
I'm
well,
sure
let's
Frank is
listen
giving
to
you
her
plenty of
because
practice.
I do value Joan's wisdom. So what do you have to say about this, Joan?
The comment on the bumper sticker?
No, before that you were going to speak.
Oh, I was just going to comment on the bumper sticker.
Would you say that I listened to you?
What's a dangerous
Frank?
thing to do?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that we communicate perfectly with each other. You have taught me when to step into my female side because I am in survival mode. I think we communicate very well with each other. And yes, you are balanced.
Well, folks, we're going on 2 years here together, and I can honestly say we've never had a crossword between us.
Huh.
Well,
Never.
Because you usually have 3 crosswords, not just 2.
And I don't see it happening. We listen to each other.
And we respond to each other. We don't stake our position and scrabble to maintain it.
Well, there is no position. It's the same, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it support each other in whatever the other's needs are.
Yes.
And folks, I had to learn that the hard way.
I appreciate Jane.
So for us newcomers, you two are married, I take it?
We're discussing that.
We're going to be.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like we need to plan a party.
Counting on it.
Can I be bridesmaid?
And mainly because we both have learned so easily to go with the flow.
Wonderful.
It's great. Yeah.
You know what? To me, it's like it's a state of what I kind of get from Frank, or what I've is that there's just there isn't anything to be upset about, and that there isn't any reason to get upset about things, and to be able to put that into practice is great. That it's we are observing, and that's just we're just learning. So what's to get upset about?
Why waste the energy?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and just a brief comment. When I first met Frank, I think my initial diagnosis was that I was operating, and I still may do this. I'm operating primarily out of my female side.
I think you get that a lot in the New Age guys, and you'll always get the more sensitive guys first. In terms of like learning about more sensitivity and balance and all of those things, you'll always get the guys who are towards that anyway. And obviously, we've all been working lifetime after lifetime to get here. It's not like we're often looked down on. Men who are not so manly are often looked down on. Just how wrong can they be, eh?
Mm-hmm. I would argue that arguments are based in large measure because of people not experiencing who they really are. And I think what we're hearing is that Frank and Joan are actually experiencing who they really are, so there's really nothing to argue about.
He's teaching me. I'm learning.
Well, I think you're teaching him. You just don't know it, Joan.
There you go.
Well, thank you. I think that was a great wrap-up of our earlier conversation, and is a good lesson, and I hope now that we will do one more lesson, which is to internalize what we've learned. And if you've never been exposed to the internalization process, this is how it works. Everything, when we're having a conversation like this, or reading a book, or listening to a lecture, watching TV, is taken into our frontal lobes. And that information that we want to internalize and remember is actually carried down through the base of the brain, internalizing into the subconscious mind in the hard disk of the computer. And there's a quick way of intentionally doing that, and it's a way of really learning how to take in a lot of information and keep it. So close your eyes, take your point of attention up in your forehead, and feel that pressure, the energy, the intensity that's in your frontal lobes right now. That's your brain trying to remember and hold on in the short-term memory everything we've talked about. And just feel it, wrap your awareness around it, and pull that energy down to the base of your brain. Open a trap door there, relax, let it flow down into the subconscious mind, and it's internalized as long-term memory, as permanent knowing, and it'll automatically become a part of your operating system.
Frank, I have to thank you for that. I mean, you were talking about what techniques to use. That's one technique that I use when I'm teaching guitar now. I'm teaching it to Wolf Baby's 12-year-old daughter, okay? So, teenagers have a very short attention span, but she's really doing well. But I can see sometimes like her eyes almost bulging with the information that's within her head. And then when I see that, I cue her into doing that. And I said, you can use this for any time you ever feel like that. So that's how it's going out.
Jane and I taught our kids how to do that when they were freshmen in college, and they all were geniuses. They could go to any lecture and just sit and listen, internalize it, and they'd have that information. Straight A students. 2 of them are working in the rocket sciences right now. And all 3 of them have very important jobs. 2 of them, or one of them has won 2 Emmys, in fact. So I'm very proud of our kids. And that's one reason why, is because they learned that little internalization trick. Okay, onward and upward. Do we have any healing to do tonight?
No, everybody's fine.
Okay, that's enough. Good, enough of that. Let's keep on having fun.
I'm a bit playful tonight. I don't know what. Okay, so let's start off with Gary from the room here. Craig in Fallbrook, California. He's 50-ish. Says he has ADHD. Has worked around hospitals a lot. I perceive him as being very uncomfortable in his own skin. Gets nervous the closer you get to him. Wow, there's a sensitive guy, Frank.
Well, just lightly opening up and tuning into him. He was programmed from an early age to be sensitive to fear of abuse, to fear criticism. And so the reason he's nervous now is that everything that he interacts in out here, he's monitoring it through his system to see if he's responding correctly, if he's doing the right thing. And this can be make a person very uncomfortable around other people. You can't relax and just. I'd suggest that he do that process we just initiated of simply learning how to internalize information and let the subconscious work through it, rather than have it up there in that solar plexus like we were talking about, causing anxiety. To learn how to release information, experience it all the way down into his system, and step back instead of being up in that frontal anxious mode, and he'll get along a lot better in life that way.
So, that's Gary. So,
thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Gary. That's Craig, isn't it? So, one more. Yeah. So we have JJ. Let's just grab hers. That was further up. JJ from the chat room. This is Jean in Sioux Falls in SD, and she needs healing in her eyes.
All right.
JJ is there in the chat room.
Yeah, I'm tuning in to JJ in the Gene in Sioux Falls. That's interesting. And here again is how your experiences, what you participate and interact in, how they can influence your physical reality. It's almost like when I'm being in Gene and looking out the world, I don't want to see the world. I keep trying to avert my eyes. I don't want to face it. I'm trying to block it. And so there are things that she has experienced in the past that she didn't want to see, or were challenging to her, or the feeling again is like someone's after her, coming at her all the time, and she doesn't want to see it. And so the vision response centers respond by saying, well, okay, if this is causing the stress, we'll just shut it off. We'll back off away from it. And so it causes the problems in the eyes. So I'd recommend that you go back in time and clear those experiences. Well, I can feel them big time in the heart right now, just as I suggested that. Okay, let's just help her with this. Open up, drop your awareness back in time to all the things in life that you didn't want to see, all the things that were challenging, detrimental to your health, your reality. It comes up in your throat even if you talk about that. Push that out. Push it out of your throat. You stored it there as negative self-awareness. This all affects your entire life reality, not just your eyes. Push it out. Push it out. Let it go. And anyone out there who's responding to these symptoms as we're mentioning them, do the same thing. Clear these things out of your system. It's incredibly detrimental to have energy in your throat like this. It's just choking you down. This is negative self-perception, fear of expressing yourself, fear of being heard. Don't feel like anything you have to say is worth hearing. And I'm not just speaking to the lady we're working on. I'm speaking to a lot of people out there. It just when you open up to that level of the morphogenic field, it just becomes like hands on your throat. Clear that negative self-perception energy out of there and go back in time and clear those. Keep going, clearing. Back it out, get it out of there. Find your self-worth. You're worth more than this. Okay, that's better. We dropped into a huge morphogenic field of similar situations on that one. But that's why we do this. When people respond to us working as one person and they get the same response, the energy resonates through everybody out there. This is what gives us the power in group mind consciousness. Okay, Diane has a success report. Charles, whom we worked with a few weeks back, left leg amputated. He's outstanding spirits and making much more rapid progress. Get ready for his prosthesis. Oh, that's great.
That's actually from Free Sovereign in the chat room.
Yeah, tell us more about that. That's good.
No, it was Free Sovereign posted that in the chat room. I was just relaying it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, or before that, there was a healing request. Right, okay, so Charlie is about 87 from Calgary in Canada. His body's not giving him complaints, but spoke with Norman last Wednesday, that he expects that he will complete his transition before the end of December. Thank you for blessing Charlie with his perfect release into the highest dimensions. Charlie's been on a spiritually aligned life path for at least 65 years. Well, it doesn't sound like he needs much help, but would you have anything to add, Frank?
Relax, let go, enjoy the transition. It's a beautiful part of life and can be when you come from your high self and oversoul and the spiritual impetus that's drawing you on. Release the low self fears. Assure your low self that it has an afterlife too, and program that low self to go into its morphogenic field where it'll rest and reincarnate further down the family line, genetic line, so it'll release and cycle out and come right back in again. The main thing is don't program your low self to hang around and get hung up in somebody else when the high self transitions. That causes all kinds of problems. So let go, look forward to it, stay high, welcome it, and the transition will be easy and beautiful without pain. There, I felt a good release.
So, next, our dear friend and mentor Dave Corso here. He's in quite a lot of pain, and he's not able to get much sleep. Is there anything we can do with him, for him, to him, at him?
Who is this?
Dave Corso.
Oh, Dave? Okay.
He has
all right,
heart issues and edema in both legs.
Yeah, let's open our hearts to Dave now. By open our heart, I mean go into the 0 point and tune into Dave, become one with him. Go into his 0 point Now, Dave, just really focus your consciousness deep down into your heart and realize that everything you can feel in your back now is coming from the past in standing waves that are resonating forward into the 0 point of your heart, and it's creating your future in this moment of now. So the problem with your legs is literally created in the past. So step back in the past, step back and clear and release. Release things that would hobble you from going forward, that would restrict you, that would limit your motion, your motility. And what I'm seeing is you becoming so focused in your life there, in your office and your studio, that you may be, whoa, there's the heart. Your whole heart and life and vitality is wrapped around this show, and being able to help many people this way. Dave, in your unselfishness of helping others, you're depleting your own energy and life force. Now we want to release the subpersonality you've created that thinks that life only exists to do this show because there is much life and vitality for you. Let go of the subpersonality that is owned by this program, by this radio station. Let it go. Because if you transition tomorrow, it would go anyway. Someone else would have to do it. By letting it go and offering yourself as not as someone who is dominated and controlled by your show, but who does it in love from your heart. Express full love for everyone involved in your shows, and let go any judgmentalness, any fear or restriction. Feel yourself as this being the completeness of your life, and let it be not a restriction or a limitation to you, but let it be boundless and free and open, so that you may continue and have many years in doing this. Spend your energy outward in love and release, and don't take it personally and hold it to yourself as though you were the only person in the world who can do this. Recognizing that at a point in time, this too shall pass. I let go of that fear that you might not be able to continue it. Now I feel a lot of energy, healing energy come in to Dave now, into his heart, to stimulate his heart. More life force. Let's fill Dave's heart with unconditional love. Life force. Feel our hands get hot. His hands are getting hot. Now, Dave, put your hands across your heart. Left hand below the right hand. Now feel your heart be nurtured, come back into full life and functionality, clearing and releasing any damage that smoking may have done to your heart or to your lungs or your systems. Through the power of the Christ within us, we see Dave in the perfect and normal condition, healthy and vital and as ornery as he ever was. But the orneriness is not from fear, but from love. Because we do love you, Dave. Feel your heart youthening now. Through the power of the Christ within us. You feel Dave's heart youthening. Even as all of our hearts youthen, strengthen, become more vital. Seeing the telomeres in the cells of every cell of the body lengthening, strengthening. The etheric cells rejuvenating, coming back to life. every cell in the body youthening. Now, Dave, draw a big sigh of relief and exercise. Get that water up out of those legs. Take the pills. Sometimes the doctors do things right to give them their chance to do things right. And so it is.
Question for Frank. You said that when a person is about to transition to program the lower self to not be concerned about the transition because it can reincarnate further down the road. What happens when a person has no descendants? Where does that low self go?
Everyone has genetic descendants through your brothers, your sisters, or your uncles, and everyone has genetic resonance through an extended family. You didn't get here without having a family.
Oh, so it's not necessarily yourself that needs descendants.
No, it'll be the closest genetic resonance, so the low soul can easily slide in at the moment of fertilization of the egg and rejoin those frequencies. Because the soul manages the body and the physical formation of the body. And so when it comes together, that's when the soul is implanted, the low soul. The high soul comes in, that's the moment of birth or later. And the high soul indwells to domesticate the animal low self. And that's the battle between the low self and the high self. It goes on for the rest of your life. It's who's in charge at this moment. And the high self comes in to experience being human, to have a human body, to have it experience this reality. And it can only do that and evolve on higher to higher levels itself in its transitional stages if it does a good job of domesticating this low animal and raising its consciousness and the consciousness of the whole human species. So our indwelling high soul has that responsibility, and it's very weak compared to the low self and the physical body. So it's inherent upon us consciously to think about our responsibility to the low soul and the fact that we're just borrowing these bodies. And let's treat them right. Let's take care of them. Let's respect that low soul, train it just like you would a child, because that's what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Glenn and I we knew each other in two past lives, and one was in ancient Scandinavia, and the other one we were Egyptians in the time of the pyramids. So obviously, how do those two over the umpteen centuries get together?
That brings a great question. So this question is for both of you, you and Frank. Then, when you met before, is it that previous time that you were together?
It's the high self.
Same high? That's the high self, yes.
It's the high self. The low self.
The high self.
Usually follows genetic lines, and like a Mexican will be a Mexican will be a Mexican.
Okay.
Oh, so the higher self could have been Mongolian or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
How different is, Scandinavia and Egyptian? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, bit of a stretch.
Colonies.
Well, and umpteen centuries between.
Yeah. They spread. The Phoenicians went everywhere. We refer to phonetics. They come from everywhere. The Phoenicians, and they went everywhere. They were the first to conquer the seaways and everything like that. And it all goes back to Atlantis, and everything's been around since a long time ago.
It all goes back to one female in Africa that was Ninti, who offered the egg to be implanted. That was fertilized by Enki into that Homo erectus body that gave us our physical body primarily. And this is why everything goes back to one female genetically.
So if that's the case, then how did these different races evolve? Where there's, Koreans and different races.
Those different races evolved because of different soul flows coming into those different races. The physical characteristics evolved because of the localities and environment, but the consciousness of the race itself is a soul family that comes in and instills. Because I can assure you this: different races are very different in their soul levels. I have experienced this personally and studied this, and this is why you can have a Japanese just living across the straits from Korea, but they are different soul strains.
Right. So how did they evolve from in this one female that you're talking about?
Well, you're talking about the low self there. The low self spread out and evolved all the different races. The indwelling, they could have all been come from one soul family, high soul family. If they had it, they'd have all been Irishmen, see, or something like that. But because of the different localities that evolved from the scattering of the development of the human on Earth here in the last 260,000 years, that it gave the opportunity for soul groups to come in and dwell in the British Islands or in South Africa or Madagascar. And so those race consciousness, the consciousness of people are very different. How they think and how they function, how they view religion and everything else.
But they're physically different too. Pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So, Andrew Bartzis is talking, and a lot of other people talk about that we just came from different stars, and we're not all from the same star system.
Well, that's the soul
that
group.
would explain
that's the soul group.
How a Korean could be from a different place than
that's the soul groups, and you can follow your own soul group out if you want.
So how does this connect to this one person you were talking about in Africa?
That's the physical side. That one mother that was genetically altered by the Anunnaki and spread and created all the sub races underneath. That happened at that period when human species was virtually wiped out. The other primate strains, they were because of the physical conditions of the world.
Oh.
It's interesting to follow your soul stream back and to get acquainted with your soul cousins.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What about past lives? Is it a good idea to delve into that to find out the things about your past lives? Like, I don't know anything about my past lives. Would it be a wise thing to check that out, or?
It's more of a satisfy your curiosity than anything else.
Right.
Because what you are here and what you're expressing here is what's important to your next lifetime. Not
right.
Because this is the one where you formulate who you will be in your next lifetime and what you have not achieved in this lifetime. That when you die, you have that rest period of reviewing this lifetime and the mistakes you made, and choices you made, and to determine what to do in the next one to improve that. And this is accelerating right now tremendously because of the rise in the frequency rates. It's happening because of the dimensional shift that's occurring. And we're coming to a culmination here of many soul streams, life streams that are being brought to a head and terminated here. And some will not continue on in this earth plane into the next dimension of reality, because they may choose to go back to their planetary sources. And that's all well and good if they accomplish what they came here to learn. Earth, for these higher souls, expanded souls, is kind of like a vacation place where you go to forget everything you've learned and experience a whole new reality. And those who do choose to stay have an interesting charge upon them, in that we get to create a new human species that we can take out into the cosmos. And because as we go into the fourth dimension, it's a time-space dimension where we learn to use the genetic gifts and abilities that are already programmed into us, and develop all of our strands of DNA back again that can knock you down, so we'd be good slaves. But these are regenerating. That's what the fourth dimension's about. And the more rapidly we can do this, the more rapidly we'll evolve into the fifth and become co-creators of a whole new strain of humans out there. These guys that are coming in here and checking us out in the spaceships right now, they're different from us, very different. That's why they're not communicating with us, because they have strict orders from the Galactic Council to not interfere with us. Let us evolve a new, stronger species that's come up the hard way, and that we can carry out into the stars and help possibly to regenerate a better solar system out there.
Right. And the knowledge of evil is something that we need in order to be godlike, because God knows about evil.
That's
if
exactly
we're going to
right.
be, and so the knowledge of evil is what's coming out, and this is coming out all over the place.
We're here to learn what not to do and how not to be if we're going to evolve into gods. Otherwise, we will never be allowed to evolve into gods.
Right, and just with the knowledge of just how evil things really are that are, that we thought were good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the churches and the Rothschilds and people like that. Satan worshippers and stuff, Luciferians, secret societies.
Well, they get to cycle around again and again and again until they get it right. Myself, I don't intend to fool around here much longer.
Yes, you have to look within yourself to see what you need to clear and clean within yourself. That's what you would term evil.
Right, but I'm talking about the evil that's been controlling the world and had us enslaved for thousands of years. That knowledge is not really in the mainstream yet.
No.
Evil needs to be into the mainstream, so that if the people knew what was going on, they would hang those guys or
but
change
see,
things
that
immediately.
wouldn't make them. That would not make us any better to them then.
Well, I think that's the point. That when they're not going to be thinking about that when they find out what's been done. Don't they? What do they do to people in the street? They get picked up for a drug thing. They throw them in jail for 10 years. How cruel is that? And
it's
these guys
extremely cruel, but you don't want to become like them, though.
No, I don't want to. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the society out there, the world, the people, the consciousness of humanity that's over there right now trying to start World War III, and people aren't really aware because they're being brainwashed by the media about what's really going on is not really what the media is telling them.
But we have to have faith in ourselves as a group that just like our group, there's many, many, many other groups that are waking up, that understand that there's no retribution, that it's all part of the learning experience. And as we were talking about the other day in the little group, that I think that once things start to shift and the truth starts coming out in huge quantities, also the awakened group is going to be there to support them. And so I think that it's all going to go in the perfect balance. I don't think there's going to be this huge rampage with people with their pitchforks and their torches ready to get vengeance. I think we're will reach an understanding, because it's all happening in a smooth, harmonious way, the waking up. It's going to be a shock, but I have a feeling that there'll be enough of, and maybe we can just use this group, use the energy of this group to put that out there, that the transition will be without vengeance and without anger and hatred.
That's what this group is always meant to be.
That's what we're shooting for.
Unconditional love. And Frank always talks about free choice. You know, it's even when you don't have a choice, you have a choice. You have a choice not to do anything. And these other people, yes, you know, they will do what they're going to do, but that's fine. They will have their space, they will have their place, we'll have our space and our place. And we'll all live harmoniously.
Right. Well, I'm just talking about getting the knowledge. The knowledge of evil is what needs to be get out there to everybody. So if everybody knows what evil is in this world, then they'll know how to do the right thing.
It is getting out there, and is getting out there the right way. Slowly but surely, in love.
Yeah, well, I'm a very impatient person. I'm in a hurry.
You have to learn the patience. That is one of the things that you're here to learn.
I was just trying to be a joker there.
Through the power of the Christ within us, thou shalt come to self-realization in your own time, your own space, your own terms.
And so it is.
You're here.
How blessed are all of us to be here right now listening to this and to go through this whole circle and be here in love and know that that is what is important.
Feel your heart open in that love that's resonating from Catherine. She is a goddess of love. And that's the most potent healing force in the world.
Yeah, I just felt it. Thank you very much.
And I thank you all. What's exciting is I can feel it going into different dimensions and covering all the lower. And it is going.
Yeah, we hit a big point of self-realization and oneness with this, so let's let that resonate around the world through Wolf Spirit Radio, through all the people who are listening or will listen, and to all those who can't be here now, but are picking up the resonance of the intent in the group mind consciousness. Just send that incredible unconditional love that Catherine resonates. That's why she came back from the higher dimensions to us. That's the divine goddess. And isn't it interesting how when it's triggered, that divine goddess rises within each one of us?
Mm-hmm.
That's the mother. The resonance goes all the way back to Ninti, the first Earth Mother. Out of curiosity, when I was following my own soul flows back, I got back to Neti, and then I wondered, okay, if this were is where our source was, our physical source, and our soul sources come from all over the place out there, and those who said they were the gods, the Anunnaki, that set up domination force in the world, I got curious and I thought, who are their gods? As they were evolving, who did they pray to? What was their God source? And I was allowed once to follow that back through. And I came to a point where, this is almost overpowering to remember, where the Anunnaki planet, Nibiru, was thrown out of another star system because they simply would not let go of that domination force. And so they threw them out, and they traveled through the cosmos till they hit the sun and was trapped by our own sun here and became part of our system. And but then I went on through beyond them to that original planetary system. And that's where I could really begin to experience the full God Force energy. And you can feel it in yourselves now if you just open up and let it glow. That's that beautiful glowing light in you that's right in your heart center. That's the source of all consciousness. That's the source of all living things. And even though it's been acting out for millions and billions of years in all the different forms possible, it all goes back to that one light and that one source, all the way back to the moment of the Big Bang, when this solar system, or the entire planetary system, the universe, was established. And it expands outward, and it'll continue to expand outward until it just runs out of energy and dissipates away. But that life force will not be dead. That life force will simply come back together again, create another point, another Big Bang, and do it all over again, as it's done how many times before. Let your own memories run back and be thankful. Be thankful to be a part of that life spirit, that force, that incredible consciousness. We can't even put a name to it. It has no name. It just is source. That's who we really are. We can define all other things possible, all other experiences possible, all things possible. But within all living things, all the galactic beings that are out there, it's all one thing, all one consciousness. Let's just say thank you for this experience and say good night now.
We've got one last healing request. This is from JJ. Can you heal her do a healing on her daughter Carrie? She had brain surgery and steel rods holding up her head from her neck. She's in Tia, South Dakota.
Yes, we're following that request back. Yeah, I can feel her head. See the power that God force within us. We see this person in a perfect and normal condition. Bring her back into full balance, normalcy. Left side of her head. Heal. Take her back to that point of perfection. And bring her forward without this condition. And on into the future. And we feel the healing occur now. It is done.
Yeah, I just saw those rods just falling away.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, JP.